Oh my goodness, do I have a game for you guys to enjoy. So every now and then a game comes along that has every element of what makes Magic the quintessential best game ever created. And this game is a perfect demonstration of that principle. Buckle up, get ready for a ride. This is phenomenal. This is a 1 in 100 or maybe even more rarefied game than that. I'm up against JHat784 and he's packing Selvala, Explorer Return, which is a green-white commander you actually don't see too often, mainly because of its, well, at least not in 1v1, because it's pretty hard to abuse the parlay ability against a single person. Against multiple people, you can often tap this creature to produce 2 or 3 mana a turn, especially if you have the ability to untap it. And while extra people get lots of extra cards, of course, it's early in the game and they don't necessarily have a way to utilize the extra cards as quickly as you do. Plus, you're getting the cards on your turn when you're generating the mana, and so you can often play lots of giant degenerate things. You don't see it as often in 1v1, but I've actually had some problems with this commander in previous games, especially with red-blue, where it's quite hard to remove it as it's a 2/4. So looking at my hand, I'm going first here, and I have a pair of islands, a Temple of the False God, which obviously I'm never happy to see in my opening draw, but I do have Miscalc for cycling as well as Repeal, and as he's green-white, I expect that I'll probably have a fair amount of targets. Plus I have the Steel Hellkite, which is a tremendously powerful card against green-white because they tend to play with a lot of small creatures, and if I'm able to connect with the Hellkite, I can often just clear their board out with it. So this hand is sort of borderline keepable. I think it's a little bit on the greedy side, but I feel ultimately because of the ability to cycle, as well as repeal something, and the Vandalblast as potential insurance against artifact shenanigans, because he's obviously not playing a budget deck, that it's probably better than a random 6-card hand plus a scry, so I'm going to keep it. And off we go. Just going to play an island here. Alright, and he goes turn on Savannah Finhorn Elves, so it's a fairly ideal start for him, short of getting a mana artifact. He did mulligan, at least, to somewhat equalize the playing field. I certainly intend to bounce that Finhorn Elf if I don't draw into another land right away. And even if I do, I'm going to do it. Alright, unfortunately it's not red, so have to just bounce the elf anyway. That'll keep him off of his Selvala at least for one more turn. I'm really just hoping to draw red at this point. And I'm not going to sit here and sit back on the Miscalc because it's extremely likely he may not even cast Selvala next turn. He might cast something that costs 1 mana, and I won't even be able to use the miscalculation. And I'd rather cycle and stunt his mana development than just cycle a card to no effect. And I think if he actually played the Selvala here, I don't think I would counter it with miscalculation as well, mainly because I kind of want to actually let him allow me to draw extra cards off of it because of the fact that I have no red and I have the temple. So I need another land anyway. I need a 5th land, and I need it to be red so that I can play multiple things in my hand. So the Selvala is not that big of a threat, and as a result of that, I don't really mind him casting that. But of course, I'd rather just set him back a turn anyway because there's plenty of other things he could cast for 3 mana that I would not like, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach kind of thing. And again, Everflowing Chalice, which is pretty nice to get right now because that's going to at least ramp me a little closer to getting the Steel Hellkite out, even if I don't draw that 5th land. He replays his elf in a tapped land. And because this is Canopy Vista, I feel a little sad about bouncing the elf so zealously because he may not have been able to cast his guy anyway, and I could have cycled Miscalculation instead and held a repeal for something more important. But you can't really predict the future. Alright, here we go. Flame Slash. Damn. Alright, no red mana still. So I'm just going to play the Everflowing Chalice here for kicker 1 with the ability to either miscalc something really devastating like a green-white or green or white Planeswalker, or just cycle it in the event he casts something innocuous. I guess Glimpse of Nature, which is a little strange, but okay. It's a little early for that spell, I think. And then he plays Wirewood Symbiote. And then he casts Eladamri's Call. So he basically just used Glimpse of Nature to cycle. I feel like in his position that casting Wirewood Symbiote and then casting Glimpse and then casting his commander might have made more sense, given the fact that he would get that on board and still be able to draw a card off of it. And off the Eladamri's Call, he's gone for a Wirewood Channeler, which is pretty powerful with 2 elves, as well as his commander, and of course the ability to untap creatures. Wirewood Channeler can make a grotesque amount of mana. So I'm going to cycle Miscalculation here. given the fact that he's built up quite a bit of mana. I'm not intending to counter his commander anyway, and I really, really need red mana. I need red mana right now, and I just need another land, too, to turn the temple on in a couple turns. So I'm just going to cycle. I get Mind Stone, not the worst thing in the world. All right, there's land number 5, so at least I've got the ability to use the temple and the dragon next turn, but unfortunately still no red. Very, very bad. So I'm going to play Mind Stone and pass the turn back. Feeling pretty anemic right now, given the fact that I have 2 cards I can't play and a dragon that is going to be summoning sick against a green-white deck that likely has probably upwards of 10 cards that destroy it. So I'm not feeling really good about this game now. Not that I was in the first place after his start. And I seem to have 5 mana after tutoring for the Channeler. I was really hoping he would just play it, and then I would be able to just play my dragon next turn regardless, and he might not have an answer to it immediately, in which case I could just lumber over with the dragon and kill off, well, pretty much whatever he played. But instead, he plays Mirari's Wake. And that card is so devastating and so dangerous that I have no choice but to sack the Mind Stone, which is something I don't think I've done in a game with this budget deck in, I don't know, 100 or more games at least. It's something I pretty much never do it, honestly. And it's one of the reasons why I took Mind Stone out of my non-budget deck. And the reason is because I just found that I never wanted to sack it for mana. I mean, I never wanted to sack it to draw cards. I just always wanted the extra mana source. Though in this case, I need red so badly and potentially a 2-mana counterspell to stop Mirari's Wake that it's worth sacking. And I have a decent range of things that can stop it. I have Daze, I have Condescend, I have Counterspell, and I have Mana Leak and Negate. So a few things that could stop it. I've got to hit one of them, though. Come on. Damn it. All right, Wayfarer's Bauble. But that's actually not the worst thing in the world. At least that is finally a source of red, albeit 2 turns away. But now he has a ridiculous amount of mana in play. This card is just insane. And all of his guys are 2/2s as well. Yuck. Yeah, Mirari's Wake is definitely up there as far as one of the most powerful and compelling reasons to play green-white. It is just an absolutely brutal enchantment if it gets out. And especially good against blue-red. All right, what do we got coming here? Into the Royal. All right, so I'm faced with a tough decision here. On one hand, I could use 2 blue mana and the Temple to cast Into the Royal with Kicker on Mirari's Wake. Now, that would slow him down to at most, or I should say at minimum of 5 mana next turn. And he likely would just replay the Wake, and if I did draw a counterspell off Into the Royal, then I would be able to stop the Wake from coming back onto the board. Plus, it would draw me closer to red. But he only has 3 cards left in his hand, and I kind of feel like it's worth it to go for it here. I do have the fact that I can play both the Dragon and the Bauble this turn to deploy red mana on the following turn. And if I just get 1 attack with this Hellkite, I'm kind of going to have my pick of the litter as far as what to kill off. So with that in mind, I decide, as much as I would like to bounce the thing and get it off the table and force him to replay it, I am just going to play the Dragon here and hope that he's got no answer. Like, what are the chances, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? So you always have to ask yourself when you're playing against someone who's got upwards of 10 mana available to them on the following turn, and you decide to tap out. All right, there's the 5th land. So now he's got 11, and he taps a ton. And I see 11 mana, and I think, oh my god, it's like some insane Eldrazi that's going to exile an island in my Hellkite or something ghastly, and that'll be the end of the game. He's tapping mana, so now I know it's an X spell. And if it's an X spell, it can mean one of only 2 things. One is Court of Calling, and for 11 mana, he could get Terastodon into play, which would be absolutely ruinous to me, given the fact that it would be 10/10, and it would kill 3 islands and pretty much wipe me out. Or it's this card. Genesis Wave for 8. Oh, God, that's so brutal. And on the Genesis Wave, which is a very interesting assortment of cards, you notice he gets 1, 2, 3 land, so that's 6 mana, plus a Sprawl, plus a Wild Growth. That's actually 8 mana off of his Genesis Wave for 8, in addition to a solution to my Dragon and a freaking Concordant Crossroads. Everything comes into play, and a Rites of Flourishing as well. So he's got Mana Flare and Mana Flare and Howling Mine in play now to enable his green-white deck. And there goes the Dragon. So nasty. He taps some more mana here. Now his guy comes out, and it's got haste, and he's got Wirewood Lodge in play. And something weird happened here. I'm not sure what's up But you notice Utopia Sprawl went into the graveyard when he did, in fact, have a forest in play. He could have just attached that. I guess this is a forest, too. He could have played it on either one of his savannas. But that didn't happen. But either way, he's got haste. So he draws a card. And it's funny because I'm sure a lot of people probably looking at this game would wonder why my blue-red deck is just so terrified of him having a parlay, draw a card, each player draw a card creature in play. But as I've explained many times in the past, blue-red, and especially Nin, is about containment strategy. You really need to keep the opponent with as few cards in hand as possible because that makes your counterspells way more powerful. It makes the decision of what to counter a lot more automatic and easy because you're just dealing with a lot more information. And it gives your opponents fewer opportunities to deal with your board state. So when your opponent is just drawing cards unfettered, even if you're getting the same benefit, it just makes it so the core of what this deck is trying to achieve is drastically weakened, and that's certainly this case right here, where he's drawing extra cards, and he has so much more mana than me that even if I draw 2 or 3 extra cards a turn, I can't even use them all, whereas he can play every single thing he draws, given that he now has, 16, 17, 18 mana in play? That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, it's absurd. I mean, he has upwards of 20 mana in play already. I don't even know what turn this is, turn 5. That's looking terrible. Okay, so he parlays a second time. He's got 3 green mana back in his pool, and all of his guys have haste. And then the compound matters even more. To make things even worse, he plays a birthing pod. Good lord. All right. What the hell am I going to do here? I don't even have red. Jesus Christ. All right. So I get bash for 2. Oh my god, and he untaps this guy and decides not to parlay another time, which is a little strange to me, given that he can generate more mana and even use his birthing pod right now to hatch one of these guys into something bigger. If I were him, I might even just convert Selvala into something bigger right now, a 4-drop, and go to town with it, since it's so trivial for him to just replay it. Even if I had a counterspell, he has enough mana to replay it like 5 or 6 more times. Alright, so I draw an island. At least Rights is going to fuel me a little bit, albeit, and him as well. So I draw Repulse. So this is interesting. I can repulse something, but if you notice, actually, he's got my dragon sitting underneath a Banishing Light, and he has Concordant Crossroads in play. So suddenly this Into the Royal looks a hell of a lot better, and I actually have a pretty awesome play that I can do here. So after thinking about it a little bit, I decide that I can't really afford to do the kicker thing. So I'm going to play my 2 lands. I think I misplayed here based on the amount of mana I wound up with. I think I should have played the Hedron Archive, and I think I still had enough mana to do what I wanted. So I enter the Royal away, the Banishing Light, which unfortunately just puts it back into his hands since I don't have a counterspell. But I do get to rumble over the dragon and smash him. And with a total of, I guess I can play the... Yeah, I think I may have forgotten for this turn, actually, that I could play 2 land under Rights of Flourishing, which is a shame. It says over here, 1 land play remaining. I should have played the Kirkkeep, and certainly played the Hedron Archive as well, just to deploy more mana. But I was thinking about the fact that I wanted to both repulse and use the Wayfarer's Bauble, and didn't really consider these 2 plays, given that I wasn't accounting for the extra mana I'd get from Kirkkeep. So the question is, what do I do here? Do I spend 5 and blow up Mirari's Wake, which would shrink all of his guys and cut off, well, what is this, 9 mana that's available to him? So that would be like destroying 9 mana and killing off Mirari's Wake. The problem is that even if I take that route, I know he still has a Banishing Light in his hand, so I'm only going to get 1 attack with the dragon unless I protect it with Repulse. So that's another option potentially, which is something I also considered too. If I Repulse the dragon in response to the Banishing Light, he has to kill something. Well, I guess he would target this, and the Concordant Crossroads would still be in play, and I could replay the dragon on the following turn. But I just feel like with him being able to untap and use Selvala multiple times, as well as his active birthing pod, that's just too much time, and he's going to be able to do too many gnarly things to me. Plus, he's drawing extra cards every turn from Rights of Flourishing, and with all that in mind, even though he'd lose a lot of mana off the Wake, he'd still have more than enough to do tons of unspeakable things to me. So with that in mind, I decided to just spend a single mana, given that he's got Wild Growth, Elf, Symbiote, and Concordant Crossroads in play, which can do obviously crazy things with all of his other mana creatures and his ability to untap stuff. So I'm going to do it for 1 and hope that he doesn't notice that he can actually bounce his elf back to his hand. So he draws a card in response. And what happens there? Yeah, that's right. And so so he draws a card, and then I decide I'm going to just repulse this guy right now. that's right. Yeah, I haven't even paid for the dragon yet. He taps to draw a card, and I decide I'm just going to repulse this guy right then. Because that was my plan all along, since that's the purpose of removing Concordant Crossroads from the board. And in his haste, he doesn't remember to bounce his Finhorn Elf back to his hand, which he easily could have done right there. He could have just untapped a creature and drawn his elf back. So bonus free card, and finally I've drawn red mana. And I could have actually, oh no, I guess I did recognize that I could play a second card. And I think that's why, in retrospect, why I didn't play the Kirkkeep, on the off chance that I did come into play tapped red land. Look at that. I'm a better player when I'm actually playing the game than when I'm doing the replay of it. Okay, so I'm all done here. Still not looking good by any measure. My opponent has 8 cards in his hand and still has massive amounts of mana, and I have absolutely no ability to interact with him at all outside of this dragon, which is about to be destroyed or tucked under an enchantment anyway. So he starts tapping tons of mana. Oh my god, there's just so many horrible things he could have. And he replays Selvala, which unfortunately doesn't have haste anymore. However, the card that he revealed was the extremely ugly picture of Lightning Greaves. So he actually does have... Oh yeah, and one of the other cards he revealed, I'm sorry, I haven't been showing you guys that. He's got an Elvis Mystic with it earlier, and then there's also a To Arms, which is kind of cool with his dude. He plays these Lightning Greaves. Sigh. Well, all my efforts to stop Concordant Crossroads have now made it just one-sided. He plays Elvish Mystic, taps and draws. I draw Legacy's Allure, which, while being very powerful, is extremely weak against Mirari's Wake and lots of opponent aggression. I just don't have the time for it. He plays Wirewood Channeler. Because of Greaves, he's just going to make sick amounts of mana here. Plays a Divining Top. All right. And then he uses his Birthing Pod, and I was fully expecting him maybe to sack the Wirewood Channeler to get something for 5. Like, if I were him, I would have probably gotten, assuming he has it, I would have gotten maybe the Acidic Slime. I mean, he doesn't need the mana from this. I'm not sure why he would sack an elf over it. And he could kill off either my Temple or... actually, I think Acidic Slime can kill Steel Hellkite, right? Does it say non-creature? I think it says artifact. So I think you can actually use Acidic Slime to just kill Steel Hellkite. But he doesn't do that. He sacks an elf instead, and he gets Seeker of Skybreak, which he can throw Greaves on to untap his Dork and use it again. And I draw by force. So now I've got 2 artifact removal spells, which is kind of handy in case he's got more nasty artifacts, but he still has tons of mana available. And what's coming next? Hurricane. All right. Well, I guess he wanted to save his Banishing Light for something a little bit harder to deal with than a 5/5 flying artifact creature. So he just Hurricanes away the dragon. I'm sad to see it go, but it was not long for this world anyway. Now he's Greavesing up and screwing around. He untaps this guy again. Looks at the top card, and he parlays again to fill my hand up. And he's still got 4 cards. Ugh. Yeah, the fact that this thing's drawing 2 extra cards a turn now is really problematic because of his mana availability. Oh, and might as well add Sol Ring to the mix. But at least this is going to make the by force of the Vandal Blast a lot stronger here. So at the end of the turn, I finally get to sack this Bauble. I'm going to go get red, even though I've already got a mountain in my hand. But I've got so much blue mana at this point, I kind of figure that down the road I might want to cast multiple red spells in a turn. So having more sources of red is going to be handier. All right, well, I get a little moment of respite here before the craziness begins next turn. Draw 2 cards. I get a Command Tower, so I've got another source of red. All right, so I have analyzed the turn here for a little while. He's got currently 4 artifacts in play, so I could cast by force, and of course I don't really want to target the Divining Top with that. But he did let me kill an elf with the dragon's ability earlier by not returning it to his hand. So I decide that there's a small chance that he might not return the top to his hand if I cast Vandal Blast with Overload, even though it's 1 mana more expensive than casting the by force, targeting the Ring, the Greaves, and the Birthing Pod. So I'm just going to overload the Vandal Blast here on the off chance that he doesn't recognize that he can draw a card with his Divining Top and he just auto yields and it dies. Because people do make that mistake from time to time. I've had it happen a lot. Not just online too, but also in real life. So it's worth a try, I think, here. Worth the extra mana, since I don't really have any plans for it otherwise. But he did. The moment he uses it, of course, I know he's going to just put it back on top of his deck. But that's fine. I still get 3 for 1 for 5 mana. Can't really complain about that. I can play 2 land here. Okay, and I'm going to... so this turn, now that I've got access to 2 red mana, I'm going to try to take this Dork off the board again. Just do that as much as possible, especially now that he can't Lightning Greaves it to give it haste and use it multiple times in a turn to keep drawing cards. So I'm going to... so I decide to Electrolyze it and then hit it with Flame Slash, which isn't even a loss of card economy, given that Electrolyze is a cantrip. So it keeps that guy off the board, and it's going to at least gobble up some of his very, very copious mana next turn to replay it. And I'm Gonna just play Nin the Pain Artist here. I had the other option, of course, of playing the Hedron Archive and then casting the Electrolyze and the Flame Slash. But I decided getting Nin online here. Even though it's very likely to just get clamped underneath an enchantment, it's worth starting to put it out there. Because I do have tons of mana at this point. And if I'm able to get a window to start using Nin, it might be able to get me back into this game. Because I've drawn very few counters and I really need them to constrain the craziness. Alright, he plays his Divining Top again. Alright, Selvala back. And he draws the card off the top. Very interesting choice. Oh, okay, so he must have had Beast Within up there. And of course, he probably should have held on to this to at least wait for me to invest mana in Nin before casting Beast Within, but I guess he wanted... Maybe he was worried about me countering it. And that's not entirely unreasonable, given the fact that the 3/3 doesn't help me all that much. But what this does allow me to do is just replay Nin trivially next turn, and then I've got a 3/3 also to blunt his aggression. Alright, Rights, and finally, God, finally I draw another counterspell. I mean, this has been... It's the first hard counter that I've drawn, and I'm now 29 cards into my deck. It's just very unlucky. Or I guess 20, yeah, 29. Alright, so I get to play 2 more land again. I've got my little Kobold of Kirkheap Maker, which is pretty handy. And I decide I'm just going to throw Control Magic. I know he still has the Banishing Light in his hand, but the more things that I can use to deflect interest from my commander, the better. Throwing Control Magic on the Selvala, even if he does immediately Banishing Light to get it back, means that he can't use the Selvala and the Seeker for another couple turns, which will keep his hand size tamped down as long as possible while I try to draw into some resources with my very asymmetric commander. I'm just going to cast my Hedron Archive and use it to power out Nin. So I do have enough mana here to dissipate. I have enough mana to create a Kobold. And not terribly screwed here. I mean, he is down to 4 cards in hand. He is going to draw 2 more. But he can't use his commander yet. And I do have defense against something really devastating, provided that it's not a cast an effect on trigger thing. Alright, here we go. Draw 2. He's back up to 6. Come on, that's right. Keep on playing those lands, buddy. There's no use for him. Anyway. Alright, tapping a bunch of mana. So there's Oblivion Ring. Okay, so he's got 2 of these enchantments. And, because I know he still has the Banishing Light in his hand. So he's got 2 mystery cards. And, yeah, there's the Divining Top. Okay, so I'm going to wait for him to target, of course. And surprisingly, he decides to banish the control the Selvala instead of the Control Magic. And I can't say I agree with that, because now he has to replay his guy, and it's going to cost 7, because that's going to reapply the commander tax. If I were him, knowing the fact that I'm blue-red and I likely have very few ways to get rid of an Oblivion Ring, certainly not permanently, that he probably should have just thrown it on the Control Magic, and that would have given him his guy back right away, rather than having to replay it and use up most of his mana. He's going to replay Selvala, and of course I'm not going to counter it this time. And the reason I'm not countering it is very simple. I have a ton of mana in play in a very precarious board position here with only a single counter spell. So my hope is that Nin is going to deliver something very large off of shooting herself in the next maybe 7 or 8 cards. And one of those cards should be a solution to either Selvala or the cards that it generates. So this is one of those situations where normally I would have countered this, but because of planning ahead and really sort of preparing for the worst, this is just bunkering down and saying, well, Selvala's bad, but the follow-up could be substantially worse. Plus, he still has a shitload of mana available after playing it. I mean, because of the Wake, he's still got 10 mana available, and I can't really afford to counter something that's relatively innocuous when something much worse could come along on its heels. Like, I don't know, Craterhoof Behemoth, for example. Like, if he played Craterhoof Behemoth after countering that, it would be practically lethal damage. 8 plus 6 plus 6. Yeah, that'd be 20 points of damage right to my face. Yeah, and if I blocked and took some of the trample off, I'd be almost dead anyway. And I'd still have to deal with 3 huge creatures with no defense against them. So I can't let the Selvala resolve. I can't let something behind the Selvala resolve. So he plays Skull Clamp, and normally I'd be terrified of this, but it doesn't really affect the board all that much because of the fact that not only do I have by force in hand, but his guys all have 2 toughness at least, due to the Wake. He clamps his guy, and then for some reason clamps the Seeker. I guess he decides this is a better attacker. And because of the aforementioned Craterhoof Behemoth potential threat, I decide that I'm just going to block his Wirewood Channeler and take it off the board. I don't really feel the Beast is all that useful right now, especially because I can make a Kobold to shoot. I'm definitely not going to be attacking with it. And saving myself 3 damage here in such a precarious situation, I think is well worth it. I'm obviously not going to block this due to the fact that he would draw 2 off of it. So these guys get to trade. Plus, if I'm able to somehow deal with the Wake and curtail his mana, I don't have Winter Orb at all, which makes his mana creatures a lot less effective than they normally would be against me in some of the decks that I play. But still nice to get a 3/3 off the board that can potentially make tons of mana. So end of turn, I get to make a Kobold. Let's untap. Inferno Titan, glorious. Oh, and Soul Ring too. the one non-budget cheaty card in my deck besides the Rolling Earthquake. Well, that's super amazing sequence of cards. I get to play the Soul Ring. And the question is, what do I do with the Inferno Titan? I can't kill his commander with it without doubling up with Nin, and I'm certainly not prepared to do that because it's not dire yet. So what I decide ultimately to do is, of course, I'm going to remove the Skull Clamp, and then I'm going to burn away his untapper guy with the Inferno Titan while putting out a very robust defender / attacker / thing to draw fire in the form of enchantments, because I know he still has the Banishing Light in his hand, but I'm very certain that he'll drop Banishing Light on this creature. Draws 2 again. It's just so hard to keep his hand size small against the commander and the Rites of Flourishing. It's just so many cards. Alright, so he's his top. He only has 2 cards in hand. He parlays, now he's got 3. He's parlaying, revealing. Holy shit. There he is. Right when I was talking about him. Alright, he parlays again, and awesome, I get a counterspell. Okay, that makes me feel twice as secure, and I get a counterspell where he gets a basically useless Miri's Guile. So the commander definitely can be quite asymmetric sometimes, even when you do have double your opponent's mana. Although I'm actually rapidly catching up. What do I have here? 4, 7, 8, plus 5, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I have 18 mana myself. It's pretty remarkable, actually. I've almost drawn even. So he plays Banishing Light, and of course he targets the Inferno Titan with that, which I was prepared for. And even though it seems reasonable to counterspell here to protect the Inferno Titan, I ultimately decide that it's actually not that important to my strategy. I'm not really counting on being able to attack for damage with it to either kill him, and I certainly can't kill his commander with it. I know he has the Creator of Behemoth in play, and with that and the Divining Top, there's a huge range of dangerous things he could play here. And I decide that it's probably okay here for me to just shoot the Titan in response while keeping mana up to defend with. Because just getting a preponderance of counterspells in play to stop crazy shenanigans means that my chances of winning the long game through inevitability are much higher. So I'm going to do that. And as you'll find later, I need every single counterspell. So I'm going to shoot him for 4 so that I can dissipate. And off that I get 2 land, a map, and a Braid. So it's just such a big contrast between this deck and my non-budget. And my non-budget one is that the other Nin deck draws lots of exciting things when you draw big piles of cards. You get all sorts of awesome stuff like Gilded Lotus and Planeswalkers and various things like that. And this deck just draws a bunch of land and stupid shit, which is frustrating. Alright, to arms. Fine, untap your guy. Look and draw again. I draw Myriad Landscape. Lovely. Alright, Vizier of the Menagerie. Perfect example of what you save counter magic for. This thing would be the death of me. How crazy is this creature? With Top and Mirari's Wake in play. Absolutely bonkers. Cannot allow that to resolve. And even though I know that this is now opening up a window for him to drop the Behemoth on me, of course, the Behemoth would only be +2/+2, so it would come over as a 7/7 Trampler and wouldn't be the end of the world. It would hit me hard, but after that I could block with Kobolds, and he would lose the opportunity to have that big one-turn push. So instead, he wisely just plays Draga Tree Speaker, and actually, after he plays the Draga Tree Speaker, he spends a ton of mana, and I thought maybe he would cast a Behemoth, because it would take me almost to the edge of death if he were to play it there. It would come down as an 8/8, and this thing would get pumped up to 5/5. Actually, no, it'd be bigger because of the Wake. It'd be a 9/9, and the Draga Tree Speaker would be +3/+3, and it would be 5 damage. 14. Fucking God, it's crazy. It would have almost killed me just like that, just by playing a guy, giving it haste, and attacking with this other thing. But double check. Creator of Behemoth gives haste to all your guys, right? No. Okay. So it would not have given haste to his dude. That's why I didn't do it. Makes sense. It does level his guy up a bunch, but it's still a 2/3, so it can be killed by a Braid. But I'm in this position right now where I know that the Creator of Behemoth, if it comes out, it's lethal. So I pretty much have to not only get a counterspell to... I already have a counterspell to stop that, but I need a second counterspell to really be sure that I can stop whatever the other card is too, because he gets to draw 3 again. on the next turn. And this is that classic example I was talking about. If I know that he can only draw one card a turn and I've got 2 counterspells, then he's basically locked out of his full turn. But because he has all this extra card draw, I can't depend on my counterspells. And if I don't have a bunch in my hand as well, it's very easy for him to cast multiple things that are deadly. And I can't deal with them all. But I do draw Future Sight and Mana Leak. Mana Leak, of course, practically useless in this situation. Unfortunately, all my lands are gimpy as hell. I kind of want more blue sources, actually. This mountain's decent. Mirrored Landscape, tapped. Fumarole, tapped. Really shitty. So I give some thought about just playing Future Sight here, and I feel ultimately that I can't play the Future Sight because the variance of it is too high. I still have a lot of land left in my deck, and if I were to brick hard on the Future Sight and just hit a sequence of lands, I'd be investing 5 mana into something that doesn't affect the board at all. And with that in mind, I feel that the ability to just shoot this Kobold for a ton of cards is going to outstrip the potential of Future Sight. It's just one of those either-or situations that winds up in favor of just using the commander. But you can see me actually tapping mana and thinking about it and then thinking better of it. I'm going to play the Fellerstone, though, because I just wanted to get more mana into play my Expedition map. And that prevents me from having to discard. All right, I feel really, really uneasy here, given the fact that he literally has a lethal threat in his hand. That if he's able to pair it up with something else, like a Cavern of Souls or whatever, I'm just dead on the spot, which is really unfortunate. All right, what's going to happen here? So he uses his top, draws again. A lot of mana coming down here, and I figure, okay, here's the Behemoth. Awesome. He's just going to run it out in my counterspell, and I'm going to be totally safe, and that'll be game, because I feel like after activating Nin one time and him losing his big bomb, it's going to be almost impossible for him to come back. He's tapping mana, tapping mana. What's happening here? Court of Calling for 6. Now, what the hell could that be? Clearly, this is deliberate, and he knows his deck a lot better than mine. And there are quite a few things at 6 mana that could be extremely devastating. I think that there's that creature that gives trample and overrun to all your creatures. It basically just allows you to overrun by spending mana, and it's like a 4/3 or something. So that could be totally devastating given the amount of mana he has in play. So I can't take the risk of what he could get here, and ultimately, regretfully, well, first I have to draw in response. So I decide that I haven't seen Rewind yet. I haven't seen very many of the 3 mana counters. And with that in mind, I'm going to leave 6 mana available, which means that if I draw into 2 3-mana counters or I draw Rewind, I can Rewind and Counterspell as well, potentially. So I feel like this is the safest amount, which means that I can draw, there's just 9 in response. Come on, deck. Deliver the goods. There's Nin. Boom. All right. Ponder Island, Cold Steel Heart, Island. Whew. There's one. Counterflux, Tap Land, Brainstorm. I think that's it. Yeah, Brainstorm and Is It Charm. Okay, well, that's fine. At least I got one counter. I'm going to tap those. Counterflux, this stupid Court of Calling. He still has so much mana and the Behemoth. It's really going to depend on what else he drew here. And he plays Azuri Renegade Leader. And at this point, I'm looking at his timer. He's at 4:30, but he plays Azuri. And I'm thinking. I know he still has the Behemoth in his hand. He has 5 green mana floating. He has both of these guys. And I have 1 counterspell left. And if you guys do the math here, with 5 mana available to him, I have actually lost the game at this point, provided that he doesn't screw up. So I think about this for a long time. Okay, if I counterspell the Azuri, I'm sorry I skipped past it, but I thought for about a minute and a half about whether or not I should counter the Azuri. If I counterspell the Azuri, what happens, right? It goes away, but he's still got plenty of mana, and I'm down to a single island, and he just goes tap out, cast Crater of Behemoth, which is now a 9/9, and Jiraga Tree Speaker goes up to a 5/5, and Selvala goes up to a 6/6, and 9 plus 6 plus 5 is lethal, because I'm at 17, and I take 20 and die. So he absolutely cannot let him cast Crater of Behemoth. So that means, unfortunately, I can't counterspell Azuri. The problem is that Azuri has this stupid trample overrun ability, and he has two elves in play to piggyback on it, as well as 5, 7, 9, plenty of mana, right? So he has enough mana to double overrun. And if you add 6 damage to both of these guys, well, that's 12 plus 15 and 17 damage, so it's lethal either way. So I'm completely fucked here. There's no way to get around it. The only way that I can get around it is to give my opponent the opportunity to screw up. And sometimes these moments happen in games of Magic, and this happens to be one of those rare ones. And I had one maybe 2 years ago where I was completely dead, and for some inexplicable reason, my opponent cast an overloaded Cyclonic Rift during my upkeep when I had a Snapcaster Mage in play, which allowed me to float mana from a Gilded Lotus, replay the Snapcaster Mage to get a Mystical Tutor, and use Mystical Tutor to Rolling Earthquake away his entire board and his Jace the Mind Sculptor, and ultimately win the game. And I've got to give my opponent a chance to screw up here. So he floats a ton of mana after playing Azuri, and I see him float all this mana, and I'm thinking, oh my god, please do it. Just cast the Crater of Behemoth. If you do that, I actually can win this game. And then I see the mana start to drain away, and I go, well, fuck, that's game then. He knows what he's doing the correct thing. He's taking the safe play. So in response, I brainstorm, and there really isn't anything I could draw because I think I don't have... Oops, shit, stop. Okay. Damn, I gave it away. Well, anyway, I brainstorm in response, thinking, okay, well, I don't even have I have Into the Royal already cast, so there isn't any 2-mana bounce spell left in my deck. There is a tap card, though. I could draw into Fire Ice to tap one of his guys, and that would allow me to live around the second pump. But it doesn't, of course, yield that. I get Daze and Spell Pierce and Frost Titan. And then, an absolute miracle, he activates Azuri a second time with the first ability on the stack. And his Jiraga Tree Speaker, which is still a 2/3, hasn't had the first one resolve. And that allows me to play an Abrade before the second ability resolves and kill it. Unreal. And he says something like, should have let the other one resolve first. Feels bad. And look at this. He's got a 9/11 Trampler. I'm at 17. And what would have been an 8-power creature is sitting in the graveyard dead. Totally insane. Down to 8. It is not over yet. It's down to 1 card. And his timer is really low, too. He's at 333. So I get to untap with a billion mana in play. Rites of Flourishing still cranking. I play 2 islands here. First thing I'm going to ponder. I'm not out of the woods here by any measure. If you notice, I have no way to kill Azuri. So the things that I'm looking for right now are the best card I could possibly draw at this point, realistically, would just be probably just an Earthquake spell. If I played an Earthquake, that would take Azuri off the board, kill his dude, and I would just counterspell his Behemoth. I don't care about this thing on his next turn. But I could also draw Disciple of the Ring, which would allow me to tap his creatures, so they'd be completely useless, and that would be... I have a million instants in the graveyard already, so I could just tap things all day long while using the Frost Titan. So that would probably win me the game too. So a huge range of things I can draw here, but I really just want to get burned to get Azuri off the board. And off that, I get nothing. There's basically land, Prismatic Lens, and an Impulse. So I am going to not reshuffle, however, because the Impulse at least digs 2 cards deeper. Draw the Impulse, cast it. Stoic Rebuttal. Yeah, there's Boilerworks, that was the land. So I'm going to put those on the bottom and keep the Stoic Rebuttal, of course. Bunch of crap. Alright, I'm going to draw 2 cards with Izzet Charm here, still digging, hoping to get something that's useful. And I get Palladium Mirror and Island. Still nothing. Damn, and I'm 43 cards down on my deck too. This is a very long turn. You can see how much time has gone off my clock already. It's been like a minute and a half. So I'm going to play 2 land. And I'm actually going to do the unthinkable. I'm going to shoot his stupid elf. I have to change my mana around here. But I'm actually going to have to kill his Azuri to get it off the board. As if he gets to untap, I'm just going to die. That allows him to draw 3. But at the same time, it does remove the threat. And allows me to play Mighty Frost Titan. And that clamps down his commander. And I still have 2 counterspells now to stop both the Behemoth and another potential threat. And then just throw away a bunch of crap. Alright. Mary's Guile activates. He's really running out of time, actually. That's suddenly a big pressure for him. I'm down to 4, but he's a minute and a half ahead of me, just about. Alright. He plays a temple. He's really feeling the time pressure. He plays his top, which is not something you want to be messing around with when you have 2 minutes left on your clock, but he has to do it. And he plays Growing Rights at Itlamok, which I don't care about. And that reveals, I think it just reveals, yeah, some random crap. There's a Essence Warden, doesn't do anything. Plays Essence Warden and a Needle Sentinel to gain life, or a Nettle Sentinel. And then he plays Dauntless Escort. And this card I decide, given that he's down to just one card in the hand, and I know what it is, that Stoic Rebuttal is worth stopping the Dauntless Escort with, because I'm down to 8, and I don't really want to get swarmed by creatures, even though I do have the Fumarole and the Kirkkeep. I'm really honestly concerned about time and the fact that he's just about to run out. And I hate the fact that the game is coming down to that. I would have not countered this if we both had 10 minutes on the clock. But I don't really have that kind of time, and I'd rather just keep the situation less complicated. And here comes a bunch of mana, and now he finally commits his Behemoth as his game-ending play, and I've got the counterspell waiting for it. End of turn, I'm just going to make a Kobold. Even though it gobbles up some time on the clock, I draw a Negate, and I draw a Trinket Mage. I'm not going to even play the Mage. There's nothing really to get outside of the Everflowing Chalice, which is already in play. Actually, I guess I could get a Seed of the Synod or something. There's no reason to play it. Just going to say done here. I know he parlays at the end of the turn. I just have a big Nin activation in my future here. And incredibly, unthinkably, well, actually, he taps mana during his upkeep because he drew this guy. He drew Eternal Witness to do another thing that's going to kill me. He plays Eternal Witness, and this is it. My death is potentially on the stack once again. Tap a ton of mana, and I'm leaving enough mana available to do all sorts of things like Capsize and Counterspell. There's a huge range of things I get, but with only 40 cards left in my deck, there's a reasonable chance that I'm going to draw into my Forbid. And I really, really want that right now. There's enough things here that I think I can probably survive if I can, although I would certainly die if he were to resolve the Behemoth still, given that I'm at 8. And I don't have Cryptic Command in the deck to tap his guys. Come on, deliver the goods. Come on in. There it goes. And when I see these cards spool out here and I see no counterspells, my heart just sinks. And I'm thinking, man, why didn't I just shoot my guy on my main step? Because I could have used Merchant Scroll to go get Forbid, and that would have prevented this. But then I realized, wait a minute, there's more in my hand. Let's go look over here. Processor. Oh, what is that? There you are. Beautiful Forbid. 11 cards, or 12 cards down. So it was almost exactly the perfect number to shoot for. Forbid with buyback. Booyah. No Eternal Witness for you. He parlays again, drawing me into a Void Shatter, so I have 2 more counterspells here to protect my position. He can't do anything. And he's down to 29 seconds. End step. I'm going to cast Factor Fiction just to gobble up some more of his clock. Haha, take that. Alright, he does a little quick split, which is incredibly, impressively fast, about 4 seconds. Not too bad, to be honest. Of course, I'm going to take the pile with the Disciple of the Ring in it. Draw off rights. And there's some stuff over here. There's a Flame Tongue Cabo as well, which would be pretty nice. Just as more defense. I'm just going to play 2 land. Play Disciple. He gains some life. And I'm not going to even bother, given the fact that I'm at 1 minute and 43. There's no reason to even play anything else. And if time, again, we're in a constraint, I would have played a Flame Tongue Kavu and killed off this thing. And probably played Sky Diamond and Processor for a small amount of mana. Maybe for like 2 or 3 life, just to start making guys. And I would have walloped him with the Inferno Titan, or with the Frost Titan as well, since Disciple can tap his board till the end of time. Just going to throw away a bunch of junk here. Alright, he's down to 16 seconds on his turn. No foreseeable way to get through Forbid with buyback and billions of mana. Goes back to my turn. I just untap. I draw Kefnet. It's kind of awesome. That would have just sealed the deal even further, but he's down to 11 seconds. Swing the turn back to him. He gets one more peek at his hand. This is like the end of the Super Bowl that just happened, where Brady was scrambling, trying to save himself in the last few seconds. And just like Tom Brady and the Patriots, J-Hat packs it in with no time left on the clock, and this game is won. This inconceivable, crazy game of blue-red versus green-white. I cannot believe that I was able to win this game, given the way that this game started and how utterly hopeless my hand was for so long. The fact that I had to I had to basically just utilize so few resources to stop what was going on, and my opponent had access to so much mana and so many cards. But everything kind of just turned out right, and then he made that one critical misplay that allowed me to kill his Tree Speaker with a Braid, and that was literally the entire game. That was that would have been an 8-point creature hitting me for 8 and killing me. There was no way out, and I gave my opponent the opportunity to punt the game, and he did exactly that in the only way that he probably could have. So, whew, feels good, man. What a game. I hope you guys really enjoyed that seat of the pants action, and I don't expect I'll have a game that close and that contested for quite a while. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all soon. Sorry it took 45 minutes to get this communicated, but I think it was worth it. Take care.